Sergeant Jason Henry stares at the two grotesque Malon infants writhing weakly on the blood-stained medical bay floor, their translucent segments pulsing with failing vitality. No other human would even consider saving these alien creatures. Their larval forms trigger an instinctive revulsion in most of his species. But Jason isn't most humans. The year is 2157, and the ruins of the Malon Medical Facility on Nexus IV crumble around him as another orbital bombardment shakes the foundations. His left arm throbs where superheated plasma scored his flesh during the artillery barrage that separated him from his unit. Through the facility's shattered windows, he sees the purple-tinged sky light up with anti-aircraft fire. The dying Malon scientist, Dr. Kira, lies sprawled beside her offspring. Her chitinous exoskeleton is cracked and leaking vital fluids, but she manages to activate a damaged universal translator. "Please," the device crackles, converting her clicking mandible movements to English. "They are special, different, created to process human proteins, could end war." Jason checks his combat medical kit, noting the dwindling supplies. The two infant Malons, each barely 30 centimeters long, need immediate attention. Their partially formed carapaces show signs of trauma, likely from falling debris when human forces initiated their counteroffensive on this colonial outpost. His neural implant flashes another warning from command. "All personnel eliminate all MALON-ENCUNTRS. No EXCPTONS." The order makes tactical sense. Malon mature rapidly, and their biological weapons capabilities make them lethal even in adolescence. The species' ruthless expansion and genetic purity standards led them to abandon these damaged infants during their retreat. The facility's backup generators whine as they struggle to maintain power. In the adjacent laboratory, data servers containing valuable research still hum. Jason knows enemy forces could return any moment to recover that information. He needs to decide now. His medical oath pulls against his military duty. Treating enemy combatants, even infants, will earn him a court-martial. Yet these creatures represent something unprecedented. A subspecies engineered for peace, for coexistence. Their protein compatibility could end the resource war that sparked this whole conflict. Another explosion rocks the building. Debris rains from the ceiling as Jason's neural implant screams with more urgent orders. His arm burns, his supplies are limited, and time is running out. The Malon infants twist their segmented bodies toward him, their movements growing weaker. Dr. Kira's translator sputters one final time before failing completely. In the chaos of the battlefield, surrounded by the ruins of science corrupted by war, a human combat medic faces a choice that will challenge both his humanity and his duty. The lives of two alien infants, hideous by human standards, but potentially vital to peace, hang in the balance. Jason's fingers brushed against the medical supplies in his kit. The infants' segmented bodies continued their weakening motions, each pulse of their translucent flesh growing fainter. His combat training screamed at him to follow orders, but his medical oath pulled stronger. "Hold on, little ones," he whispered, extracting a protein supplement vial from his kit. The modified feeding tube slid into place against their partially formed intake organs. He monitored his medical tablet as the nutrient mixture stabilized their vital signs. Dr. Kira's mandibles clicked rapidly as she accessed her data terminal. The universal translator lay silent, but her intentions were clear as she transferred files to Jason's medical tablet. Her movements grew increasingly erratic as she input final commands, transferring years of research data in a matter of seconds. "Tix, Zara." The translator sputtered to life one final time, speaking their names before Dr. Kira's limbs stilled forever. Jason's neural implant crackled. "All units, this is Colonel Stone. Orbital strike authorized on Facility Grid 7-3. Impact in 30 minutes. Clear the area immediately." Working quickly, Jason converted his trauma kit into a makeshift stasis pod. He rewired the temperature regulation system, creating an environment suitable for infant Malon physiology. The two creatures, now safely contained, pulsed with stronger vitality. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Jason pressed himself against a fallen support beam as voices carried through the ruins the clicking speech pattern unmistakably Malon. Through a gap in the debris, he spotted Commander Vrax's distinctive silver-streaked carapace. The notorious Malon leader directed his recovery team with precise gestures, their thermal scanners sweeping methodically through the wreckage. Jason's left arm screamed in protest as he lifted the modified stasis container. The plasma burn had penetrated deeper than he'd realized. He injected a military-grade stimulant, feeling its cold rush through his veins as his pain receded to a manageable throb. The infant Malon's vital signs flashed on his medical tablet stable, but requiring another protein supplement within 2 hours. He couldn't administer it here, not with Vrax's team closing in. Their thermal scanners would detect any movement. A map of the facility's infrastructure appeared on his neural display. The waste management system ran beneath this section, its heavy shielding perfect for blocking thermal scans, but the toxic environment would kill the infants unless. Jason accessed Dr. Kiera's research data. Her notes detailed the infants' unique genetic modifications. Their ability to process human proteins was just the beginning. He found the environmental tolerance specifications and began modifying the stasis pod's filtration system. An explosion rocked the facility. Jason used the cover of falling debris to move, timing each step between artillery impacts. The access panel to the waste management system lay 20 meters ahead. Commander Vrax's team split up, their thermal scanners sweeping in overlapping patterns. The stasis pod's warning light flashed ticks and Zara needed stabilization soon. Their vital signs wavered as Jason crouched behind a toppled column, watching a Malon soldier pass within arm's reach. The countdown to orbital strike ticked away in his neural display, 18 minutes remaining. Jason's modified filtration system would protect the infants from the toxic environment below, but he needed 30 seconds to properly seal the pod. 30 uninterrupted seconds, while Vrax's team drew ever closer and his arm throbbed beneath the stimulant's numbing effect. The access panel waited ahead, his salvation and potential doom. Behind him, thermal scanners whirred closer. Above, artillery continued to rain. And in the stasis pod, 2 genetically modified Malon infants, perhaps the key to ending this war, pulsed with weakening life signs as their next feeding deadline approached. Jason retrieved a burned-out medical scanner from his kit, yanking its casing open to access the filtration components inside. The Malon search team's thermal scanners whirred closer as he worked, connecting the delicate filters to his suit's backup oxygen supply. His fingers moved with practiced precision despite his injured arm, weaving the salvaged parts into the stasis pod's environmental seals. The pod's readout flashed a critical warning: the infant's environment was destabilizing. Jason pressed his back against the cold metal wall, steadying his hands as he made the final connections. The makeshift filtration system hummed to life, its jury-rigged seals holding against the toxic atmosphere that awaited them below. He lowered himself into the access shaft, keeping the pod stable as debris rained down from another artillery impact. The waste management tunnels stretched before him, their metal walls slick with condensation and corrosive residue. His boots slipped on the treacherous surface as he navigated deeper into the facility's bowels. 20 minutes into his descent, movement ahead caught his eye. Jason pressed against an alcove, shielding the pod with his body as heavy boots approached. A figure emerged from the shadows, weapon raised. "Hold, combat medic." Jason called out, recognizing the engineering corps insignia illuminated by emergency lighting. "Sergeant Henry." The figure lowered his weapon, revealing technical specialist Marcus Ward's dirt-streaked face. "What are you doing in the waste systems?" Jason displayed the stasis pod, its occupants pulsing weakly. Modified Malon infants. Dr. Kira's research. They could end the war. Ward studied the pod's readouts, his demolition expert's eyes catching details Jason had missed. "These tunnels are about to collapse. I can help. Got enough charges left to make some new routes." A warning chirp from Jason's medical sensors interrupted their planning. Tix's vital signs plummeted, protein levels critically low. The constant movement had accelerated their metabolism beyond his calculations. "Need to stabilize them," Jason said, scanning the tunnel. "Found it maintenance alcove ahead. Can you cover us?" Ward nodded, retrieving motion sensors from his demolition kit. He placed them at strategic points while Jason opened the stasis pod in the relatively clean alcove. The feeding tube slipped into place as Ward's first sensor pinged multiple contacts approaching. "They're tracking our thermal signatures through the tunnel network," Ward said, checking his sensor grid. "Wait, vehicle bay 2 levels down. Might have working transport." Jason's neural implant displayed the orbital strike countdown, 15 minutes. He studied his medical scanner, an idea forming. "Malon vehicles use bioelectric interfaces. I can modify this to emit their signature patterns, but what? Have to sacrifice the medical monitoring equipment. Won't be able to track their vital signs." Ward's sensors pinged again, closer now. "No choice. Do it. I'll buy us time." He retrieved his remaining demolition charges, setting them as proximity traps along their likely pursuit routes. Jason stripped his medical scanner, rewiring its core components. The delicate work stretched seconds into minutes as sweat dripped from his brow. A distant explosion signaled the first of Ward's traps being triggered, followed by alien screams echoing through the tunnels. The orbital strike countdown reached 10 minutes as Jason completed the conversion. Ward appeared at the alcove entrance, his face tight with urgency. "They're coming. Multiple teams. Now or never." Jason sealed the stasis pod, cradling it against his chest as they moved deeper into the facility's damaged infrastructure. The modified scanner pulsed in his hand, ready to interface with Malon technology if they could reach it in time. Through the tunnel walls came the sound of Commander Vrax's distinctive clicking speech, growing closer with each passing second. The tunnel shook violently as Ward's proximity charge detonated. Metal groaned and support beams buckled, sending cascades of debris tumbling around them. "Move!" Ward grabbed Jason's shoulder, pulling him forward as the tunnel began collapsing behind them. The stasis pod containing Tix and Zara pressed against Jason's chest as they sprinted through the maintenance shaft. Ward worked methodically, placing his remaining charges at key structural points. Each explosion sealed their back trail, temporarily blocking Commander Vrax's pursuit team. The modified medical scanner in Jason's hand pulsed with a soft blue glow as they approached the vehicle bay's security terminal. "Interface is accepting the signal," Jason said, connecting the jury-rigged device. The bay doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss. 3 Malon transport vehicles sat in various states of disrepair. The first 2 were clearly beyond salvation, their drive cores cracked and their neural interfaces dark. The third, a sleek Mark 7 personnel carrier, showed more promise. Ward circled the vehicle, his engineering scanner probing its systems. "Main drives shot, but auxiliary power and stealth systems are intact. Give me 5 minutes. Contact." A voice rang out from the shadows. Jason spun to face a figure in advanced stealth armor, weapon trained on the stasis pod. Lieutenant Walsh's distinctive red stripe identified him through the adaptive camouflage. "These infants are modified," Jason said quickly, displaying Dr. Kira's data on his tablet. "Protein compatibility. They could end the resource war." Walsh studied the data, his weapon never wavering. 3 Malon assault squadrons incoming. Vrax called for reinforcements. He lowered his rifle. You've got 4 minutes before the orbital strike. Make them count. Ward attacked the vehicle's maintenance panel while Walsh deployed reconnaissance sensors around the bay. Jason monitored the infant's vital signs through the pod's external indicators, their bio readings growing increasingly erratic. The supplements aren't working anymore, Jason said, analyzing their readings. Their genetic modifications are advancing too rapidly. Walsh's reconnaissance gear chirped. Got something. Hidden storage unit, northwest corner, scanning. Research materials, nutrient compounds. Jason spotted the storage unit across the vehicle bay's exposed central area. Reaching it meant leaving cover, but the infants needed those compounds soon. The facility rocked as the first Malon reinforcements breached the lower levels. Walsh's stealth systems engaged, his form blurring as he moved to intercept. Pulse weapon fire lit up the darkness. Drives online, Ward called from beneath the transport. Auxiliary power at 60%. Stealth field operational. Jason sprinted for the storage unit. Pulse rounds sizzled past him, superheating the air. He reached the unit, yanking it open to reveal racks of specialized nutrient compounds. Grabbing the supplies, he dove behind a support column as Commander Vrax's distinctive silver-streaked form appeared in the main entrance. Capture them intact. Vrax's translator boomed across the bay. The modified specimens must be recovered. Walsh's ECM devices activated, flooding Malon targeting systems with false signatures. Jason ran for the transport as Ward fired up the engines. The neural interface connected smoothly, linking Jason's consciousness with the vehicle's stealth systems. 2 minutes to orbital strike, Walsh announced, manning the defensive turret. Main drive still only at partial power. They accelerated into the maintenance tunnels, the transport's stealth field bending light around them. Behind them, Vrax's assault vehicles roared in pursuit. The first orbital impact struck the facility's upper levels, sending shockwaves through the tunnel network. Jason fought to maintain the neural connection as warning signals flashed across his vision. The stealth field flickered, straining the modified interface. Ward worked the engines, coaxing more power from the damaged drive as Walsh's turret fire kept their pursuers at bay. The transport reached a three-way junction as another orbital strike rocked the facility. The neural interface sparked, sending pain through Jason's temples. The stasis pod's indicators showed ticks and Zara would need another nutrient supplement within the hour. 3 tunnel routes stretched before them. A partially collapsed maintenance shaft leading to the surface, a deep utility tunnel that might bypass the orbital bombardment, or a narrow service corridor that could lose their pursuers but risk trapping them completely. Walsh's targeting display showed Vrax's forces closing fast. "Choose now," he shouted as another explosion lit up the tunnels behind them. "Central maintenance tunnel," Jason called out, banking the transport hard toward the middle passage. The neural interface buzzed against his temples as he wrestled with the sluggish controls. Ward's fingers flew across the engineering console. "Rerouting auxiliary power to the drive system. We'll need every scrap of energy to climb that incline." The transport lurched forward as Ward diverted power from life support and internal gravity systems. Behind them, Vrax's assault vehicles split formation, 2 maintaining direct pursuit, while others branched into parallel tunnels. Walsh tracked the nearest pursuer through the defensive turret's targeting array, compensating for tunnel variance. The turret spat coherent energy, catching the lead Malon vehicle's drive assembly. It spun out in a shower of sparks, blocking part of the tunnel behind them. The second assault vehicle intensified its attack. Pulse rounds punched through their weakened hull plating. Warning indicators flashed across Jason's neural display as atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. Another orbital strike rocked the facility. Support beams groaned overhead, dropping chunks of debris into their path. Jason weaved between the falling obstacles, each sharp movement sending spikes of pain through his neural connection. "Loading dock ahead," Ward announced. But the cargo lift's dark, no-power readings. They emerged into the cavernous dock space. The massive lift platform sat dormant, their only route to the surface blocked by dead systems. Walsh consulted his tactical display. Backup power station, northeast corner. I can reach it. Too exposed, Jason protested, but Walsh had already activated his stealth systems, his form blurring as he slipped out of the transport. The stasis pod's warning indicators demanded Jason's attention. He retrieved the specialized nutrient compounds from Dr. Kira's storage unit, hands steady despite the transport's constant movement. The infant's partially formed exoskeletons had weakened during their flight. Sonic pulses suddenly filled the loading dock, their distinctive frequency attacking the transport's stealth field. Vrax is deploying countermeasures, Ward said, adjusting their field harmonics. Each modification only buys us minutes. Jason inserted the feeding tube with microscopic precision, the specialized compounds flowing into the stasis pod. The infant's vital signs strengthened almost immediately, their exoskeleton stabilizing under the enhanced nutrients. A mechanical whir filled the dock. Automated defense turrets emerged from hidden recesses, their targeting systems scanning for movement. Walsh's voice crackled over the comm. Power station reached. Beginning bypass sequence. Ward worked frantically at the engineering station, fighting to maintain their stealth field against the sonic attacks. Field integrity at 40% and dropping. Neural interface showing dangerous feedback levels. Jason's vision blurred as the interface feedback intensified. The connection to the transport systems wavered, threatening to snap entirely. He saw Walsh's position on the tactical display, the Special Forces operative moving carefully between automated firing zones. The dock's lighting surged as Walsh completed the power bypass. The cargo lift hummed to life, but the activation sequence triggered more defense systems. Additional turrets deployed, creating overlapping fields of fire across the entire dock floor. Multiple contacts, Walsh reported. Vrax has us surrounded, heavy weapons moving into position. They faced 50 meters of exposed dock between their position and the lift. Automated turrets tracked invisible targets, while Malon forces tightened their cordon. Above, the orbital bombardment entered its final phase, impacts drawing steadily closer. The neural interface sent another spike of pain through Jason's head. Ward diverted more power to the transmission buffers, leaving their drive systems operating on minimal power. In the stasis pod, the infant Malons twitched at each sonic pulse, their nervous systems reacting to the disruption frequencies. One shot at this, Walsh said, fingers dancing across his ECM control pad. Programming a wide-spectrum burst should overload their sensors and the automated defenses. Ward nodded grimly, diverting all remaining power to structural integrity. We'll have 10 seconds at most. Jason gripped the neural controls, pushing through the feedback pain. The transport systems responded sluggishly as he aligned them for their final sprint. Warning indicators screamed across his display, hull integrity failing, stealth field collapsing, neural interface approaching critical failure. Walsh's voice cut through the chaos. ECM burst in 3, 2. The dock erupted in electromagnetic chaos. Defense turrets spun wildly, their targeting systems overwhelmed. Through the transport's viewports, Jason saw Malon soldiers stagger as their sensors overloaded. The path to the lift platform lay open. Now, Walsh called. The transport surged forward on its remaining power, structural integrity field barely holding against the rain of debris from above. Automated turrets fired blindly into the electromagnetic storm, while Malon heavy weapons sought targets through the interference. They were halfway to the lift when Jason's neural connection began to fail. The neural interface spiked with excruciating feedback, sending blood trickling from Jason's nose. Through blurred vision, he saw the lift platform ahead, their salvation less than 20 meters away. Plasma bolts filled the air as Vrax's forces executed a coordinated saturation pattern. The transport shuddered under multiple impacts, but Ward's redistribution of power to the structural field kept them intact. Each hit sent cascading error messages across Jason's neural display. "Hull breaches in sectors 3 and 4, Ward called out, his fingers dancing across the engineering console. Structural integrity holding at 18%. The infants stirred in their stasis pod, their primitive nervous systems resonating with Jason's neural distress. The connection between them pulsed, unexpected and powerful. Jason felt their consciousness brush against his through the transport's interface, creating an amplification effect that stabilized his failing neural link. They reached the lift platform as Walsh's ECM interference began to fade. Automated defense turrets swiveled back to life, their targeting systems rebooting. Ward slammed the lift controls, ancient machinery groaning as the platform began its ascent. "Multiple contacts converging," Walsh reported from his defensive position. "Vrax is leading the assault personally." The orbital bombardment struck overhead, detonating against a main support beam. The loading dock's ceiling cracked, raining debris onto the platform. Walsh activated his remaining ECM charges, creating protective interference fields that deflected the largest chunks of falling metal and concrete. "Stasis pod environmental controls failing," Jason gasped, blood dripping onto his console. The neural connection burned in his skull, but the infant's shared resonance helped him maintain control. Their genetic modifications created an unexpected feedback loop, stabilizing both his neural patterns and their life support systems. Ward bypassed the lift's safety protocols, accelerating their ascent. The platform's support screamed under the strain. Through the transport's damaged sensors, Jason detected a massive energy signature above a Malon heavy cruiser moving into position. "Interceptors launching," Walsh announced. 4 marks, high-velocity approach vectors. The lift reached the surface level, emerging into chaos. Orbital strikes lit up the night sky while Malon interceptors streaked toward their position. The transport's stealth systems were dead, leaving them exposed. Jason fought to maintain consciousness as the neural interface threatened to overload. The infant's shared connection surged through the transport systems. Status indicators flickered with impossible readings as their combined neural patterns affected the vehicle's damaged electronics. Power fluctuations stabilized, and damaged circuits realigned through pathways that defied engineering logic. "New energy signature detected," Walsh said. "Human resistance forces approaching from Vector 27. IFF identifies them as Drake's cell." A plasma burst from the lead interceptor struck nearby, showering the transport with superheated debris. The infant's neural resonance intensified, their shared connection with Jason growing stronger as their primitive consciousness responded to the threat. Through their combined awareness, he sensed new possibilities in the transport's failing systems. Ward stared at his engineering display in disbelief. "Power readings are shifting. The neural interface is creating new pathways through the damaged sections. I've never seen anything like this." The Malon cruiser locked onto their position, its main weapons charging. The infant's shared neural pattern pulsed through the transport systems, their unique genetic modifications interacting with the vehicle's technology in ways that transcended normal operating parameters. Jason felt their combined consciousness expand into the damaged circuits, ready to attempt something that no engineering protocol could predict. Behind them, Drake's resistance forces engaged the Malon perimeter units, but they were still minutes away from reaching the transport's position. The cruiser's targeting systems powered up as the interceptors began their attack run. Through the neural interface, Jason and the infants prepared to unleash the impossible potential of their shared connection. The neural connection pulsed with alien rhythms as the infant's consciousness merged with Jason's through the interface. Status indicators across his display shifted from critical red to unstable yellow as impossible connections formed through damaged circuits. The transport systems responded to their shared neural patterns, creating pathways that bypassed conventional engineering limits. Incoming. Walsh's voice cut through Jason's neural haze. 3 interceptors, attack formation. The Malon vessels streaked across the night sky, their weapon systems charging. Behind them, the massive form of a cruiser descended through the clouds, its hull gleaming under the orbital bombardment flashes. Ward's fingers danced across his console. The infants, their neural patterns are stabilizing our systems, routing emergency power through the new pathways. The transport's defensive screens flickered to life, operating at 30% capacity. Jason felt the infant's minds brush against his consciousness again, their partially formed neural structures adapting to interface protocols faster than any simulation had predicted. Their shared connections strengthened the failing systems, creating a feedback loop that cleared the blood from his vision. Vrax is deploying sonic disruptors, Walsh reported. Standard containment pattern. He's trying to box us in. The cruiser's shadow fell across the cargo platform as Commander Vrax's voice filled their comm channels. Surrender the specimens. Their genetic value exceeds your lives. Jason activated the transport's remaining transmitter, sending Dr. Kira's research data on a tight beam broadcast. The infants stirred in their pod, their exoskeletons showing accelerated growth patterns on the medical readouts. Their shared neural load had triggered unprecedented biological changes. Multiple contacts, Ward announced. Human signatures Drake's forces approaching from vectors 3, 7, and 9. The interceptors opened fire, plasma bolts striking the platform around them. Through the neural interface, Jason felt the infants react to the threat. Their consciousness rippled through the transport systems, interpreting and adapting to Malon weapons frequencies. Walsh's tactical display highlighted a pattern in the cruiser's shield matrix. Shield rotation creates a vulnerability every 4 to 7 seconds. Drake's ECM team can amplify the effect. The core can be converted, Ward said, examining his engineering readouts. One electromagnetic pulse would disable their entire containment grid, but the infant's stasis pod. Jason processed the options through the neural interface. The infant's consciousness pushed back, their accelerated development creating new solutions in the transport's damaged systems. Warning indicators shifted again as their shared neural patterns rerouted power through previously dead circuits. Drake's forces split into 3 assault teams, their signatures appearing on tactical displays. The veteran commander's voice crackled through their comm. Team Charlie, begin electronic warfare sequence. Teams Alpha and Beta, prepare for synchronized strike. Vrax's forces encircled their position with non-lethal containment equipment. The sonic disruptors powered up, their distinctive frequency designed to disrupt neural patterns. But the infant's adaptation had changed the rules of engagement. Shield vulnerability in 15 seconds, Walsh called out. Team Charlie ready with ECM package. Ward's hands flew across his console, finalizing the electromagnetic pulse modifications. Core conversion complete. Pulse ready on your mark. The neural interface burned with shared consciousness as Jason integrated the infant's alien perspectives. Their combined awareness expanded through the transport systems, creating defensive configurations that defied standard protocols. The medical readouts showed their exoskeletons strengthening further, adapting to the neural strain. Cruiser shield cycling, Walsh announced. Team Charlie initiating ECM burst. The night sky erupted with electronic warfare signatures as Drake's forces attacked. The cruiser's shields fluctuated under the coordinated assault, creating a cascading weakness in their containment pattern. Vrax's ground forces moved forward with captured devices, but the infant's influence on their systems had created an unexpected advantage. Jason's neural connection surged with shared purpose as they prepared to exploit the coming vulnerability. Through their combined consciousness, the transport systems hummed with impossible potential, ready to challenge conventional limits of both human and Malon technology. Drake's assault team struck with precision. Team Alpha's concentrated fire lit up the night sky, forcing the Malon interceptors into evasive maneuvers. Through the neural interface, Jason tracked Team Charlie's electronic warfare signatures as they targeted the cruiser's cycling shield matrix. Shield vulnerability in 3 seconds, Walsh called out. ECM burst ready. The neural connection pulsed with alien rhythms as the infant's consciousness merged deeper with Jason's through the interface. Status indicators shifted across his display as impossible connections formed through damaged circuits. The transport systems responded to their shared neural patterns, creating pathways that bypassed conventional engineering limits. Power fluctuation stabilizing, Ward announced, his eyes fixed on the engineering console. The infant's neural patterns are reinforcing our control systems. A brilliant flash erupted above as Team Charlie's electronic warfare package struck the cruiser's weakened shields. The massive vessel's defensive screen flickered, creating a temporary gap in their containment pattern. But Vrax's ground forces advanced methodically, deploying experimental containment fields that shimmered with complex energy patterns. "Those aren't standard containment units," Walsh said, analyzing the tactical display. "They're using a modified frequency matrix designed for live specimen capture." The infants stirred in their stasis pod, their partially formed exoskeletons showing accelerated growth on medical scanners. Their shared neural connection with Jason intensified, extending into the transport's damaged systems. Warning indicators stabilized as their combined consciousness created new pathways through failed components. "Engineering to bridge," Ward called out. "I've got partial power restored to defensive shields. The neural network is providing alternate routing paths through damaged sections." Captain West's voice cut through their comm channel, Team Beta moving into position. Prototype stealth dropships ready for emergency extraction. The Malon cruiser's massive form descended through the chaos, its weapons ports closing as power redirected to tractor beam emitters. The transport shuddered as Ward activated their modified power core, converting it into an electromagnetic pulse device. "Stasis pod reinforced with salvaged armor plating," Ward reported. "Core conversion complete, but we're down to minimal life support and maneuvering power." Jason felt the infant's consciousness expand through the neural interface as their bodies continued adapting. Their exoskeletons incorporated traces of technology from both species, creating hybrid structures that defied conventional biology. Blood trickled from his nose as the shared connection affected his own physiology. "Multiple contacts," Walsh shouted. "Elite capture teams deploying from the cruiser. They're using specialized containment gear." The transport lurched forward as Ward positioned them within the Malon containment field network. Plasma fire streaked past their viewports while Team Alpha engaged the interceptors above. Through the neural interface, Jason sensed the infant's accelerated adaptation stabilizing their failing systems. "Tractor beam powering up," Walsh reported. 15 seconds to full capacity." Captain West's stealth dropships emerged from the chaos, their advanced grappling systems extending toward the transport. The neural connection burned in Jason's skull as the infant's consciousness merged further with his own, creating a hybrid interface that transcended both species' technology. "Electromagnetic pulse ready," Ward announced, his fingers hovering over the activation controls. Containment field analysis confirms optimal firing position. The cruiser's tractor beam emitters glowed with building energy as Commander Vrax's elite capture teams closed in. Jason felt the infant's shared consciousness pulse through the transport systems, their unprecedented adaptation creating new possibilities in the damaged circuits. "Now," Walsh called out. Ward activated the electromagnetic pulse device. Energy surged through their modified core, temporarily disrupting the Malon containment fields. The transport's remaining systems crashed as the pulse wave expanded outward. Only the neural connection between Jason and the infants remained active, maintaining critical control through their shared biological link. Captain West's grappling systems locked onto the transport's hull as the Malon cruiser's tractor beam reached full power. Through the hybrid neural interface, Jason guided their crippled vehicle using pure biological control, his altered consciousness merging with the infant's alien perspectives to maintain stability. Dr. Reynolds' voice crackled through emergency channels. Medical facilities prepared for specimen transfer. The biological adaptation must be preserved at all costs. The neural connection pulsed with impossible power as Jason's altered biology responded to the infant's accelerated evolution. Their shared consciousness expanded through the transport's dead systems, creating new pathways that neither human nor Malon technology had achieved alone. Commander Vrax's elite capture teams activated their specialized containment equipment, creating a web of energy fields calibrated to preserve the unique specimens. The transport hung suspended between West's grappling cables and the cruiser's straining tractor beam, as both sides fought to secure humanity's first successful human-Malon neural interface. The transport shuddered as Ward activated the electromagnetic pulse. A wave of energy radiated outward, disrupting the Malon containment fields in expanding rings of crackling interference. The pulse knocked out their conventional systems, plunging the bridge into darkness. Through his neural connection, Jason felt the infant's consciousness surge as the electromagnetic energy washed over their pod. Their partially formed exoskeletons began absorbing the radiation, processing it through their evolving biological matrices. "All systems down," Ward called out, his face lit by emergency chemical lights. "Switching to backup power negative." No response. But Jason sensed otherwise. The infant's neural patterns pulsed through the dead circuits, maintaining basic life support and stabilization through pure biological interfaces. Their shared connection deepened as their exoskeletons integrated the electromagnetic energy, strengthening their hybrid structures. The deck vibrated as multiple impacts rang through the hull. Through viewport, Jason watched Vrax's elite capture teams deploying from their cruiser in rapid insertion pods, landing in precise formation around the transport. The specialized containment units they carried emitted complex energy signatures designed for specimen preservation. "Team Alpha engaging hostile ground forces," Drake reported through emergency channels. Charlie maintaining electronic warfare coverage. Dr. Reynolds' voice cut in. "Jason, the infants, their protein synthesis is evolving. The neural interface is creating a stable three-way connection between your patterns, their biology, and the transport systems. They're sustaining critical functions despite the shutdown." The transport lurched violently as the cruiser's tractor beam activated at full power. Metal groaned under the gravitational stress, but through their shared neural link, Jason felt the infants channel energy through their adapted exoskeletons, generating a counterfield that partially negated the pulling force. "Additional grappling points secured," Captain West transmitted. Preparing synchronized lift sequence. Commander Vrax's voice filled the emergency channels. All units switched to non-lethal suppression protocols. The specimens and interface must be preserved intact. New containment units deployed around the transport, their preservation fields forming complex geometric patterns. Team Beta's electromagnetic decoys launched in response, creating a chaos of false signatures that scattered across Malon targeting systems. The deck pitched as West's dropships initiated their lift sequence. Jason's neural connection flared with alien sensation as the infant's consciousness expanded beyond the transport systems, briefly touching the cruiser's control networks. The tractor beam's energy signature fluctuated wildly. Tractor beam effectiveness down 60%, Walsh reported. They're losing their lock. Blood ran from Jason's nose as the neural interface deepened. The infant's minds pressed against his consciousness with increasing complexity, their rapid evolution creating new pathways between human and Malon technology. Warning indicators stabilized across dead control panels as their shared biological connection maintained critical systems. Medical containment ready, Dr. Reynolds transmitted. The neural bond has become symbiotic. It must be preserved during transport for both parties' survival. The transport shuddered as West's dropship strained against the weakened tractor beam. Through the neural interface, Jason felt the infant's consciousness pulse with alien rhythms as they processed the electromagnetic energy saturating their systems. Their shared connection grew stronger, more intricate, transcending the original design limitations of both species. A new energy signature emerged from the cruiser. Quantum disruption devices detected, Walsh called out. Vrax is deploying experimental containment technology. The devices activated, creating rippling distortions in space around the transport. But the infant's evolved neural patterns adapted faster than the Malon technology could compensate, routing control through new biological pathways that defied conventional disruption. Beginning fighting, retreat to medical facility, Drake transmitted as his forces engaged the advancing Malon teams. Maintain electronic warfare coverage on Vector 7. The transport broke free from the cruiser's failing tractor beam. Through their shared neural link, Jason guided the crippled vessel using pure biological control, the infant's consciousness merging with his own to maintain stability. Their hybrid interface grew stronger with each passing second as their exoskeletons continued processing the electromagnetic energy that had temporarily freed them from Malon containment. The transport broke free, but victory proved fleeting. Rippling waves of quantum energy swept across their hull as Vrax's disruption devices activated. Jason's vision blurred, neural feedback cascading through his mind like shards of broken glass. Fresh blood streamed from his nose, painting crimson trails down his chin. Neural patterns destabilizing, Walsh called out, monitoring Jason's vitals. Connections breaking down. Through the fragmenting interface, Jason felt Tix and Zara's consciousness pulse with new intensity. Their shared neural network expanded beyond the transport systems, reaching into the quantum distortion fields themselves. The infant's partially formed exoskeletons began to shimmer with an iridescent glow. Extraordinary, Doctor. Reynolds' voice crackled through the comm. The specimens are incorporating the quantum energy directly into their biological matrix, neural stability increasing by 20%. The quantum resonance spread through Jason's neural connection, altering his synaptic patterns. The searing pain in his head diminished as his brain adapted to match the infant's evolved frequencies. Teams Alpha and Charlie form up, Drake commanded. Create an extraction corridor at bearing 035. Ward's hands flew across his console. Captain, the core's got residual charge from the electromagnetic pulse. If we route it through the neural network. Do it, Walsh interrupted, firing suppression bursts at advancing Malon forces. Vrax is incoming. The Malon commander's combat suit cut through the chaos, its neural dampening field creating visible distortions in the air. Above, the cruiser's massive form repositioned to block their escape vector, weapon ports glowing with charged energy. Ward connected the final circuits, routing power through the stasis container. Now, energy surged through the neural network. Jason gasped as the infant's consciousness flared within his mind, their evolved bodies channeling the power surge into a resonance wave that expanded outward. The quantum disruption fields twisted, then collapsed. Vrax's combat suit froze mid-stride as its systems failed. Above, the cruiser's weapons died, leaving it hanging impotent in the sky. Medical containment prepped and ready, Doctor. Reynolds transmitted. Get them here before the effect wears off. Captain West's dropships accelerated through the opening, grappling cables straining as they pulled the transport toward the secure facility. Jason maintained the neural connection through pure instinct now, his altered consciousness merging seamlessly with the infant's hybrid interface. The secure facility's blast doors parted as they approached. Medical teams swarmed the landing zone, their specialized equipment ready to preserve the unprecedented biological breakthrough housed within the transport's battered hull. Careful with the neural interface, Dr. Reynolds directed as they transferred the stasis container. These changes could revolutionize everything we thought we knew about cross-species adaptation. Jason caught a final glimpse of Tix and Zara through the container's armored viewport. Their exoskeletons had transformed, incorporating elements of both species' biology alongside threads of machine-like circuitry. Their shared consciousness began to fade as medical staff wheeled them toward the containment chamber, leaving Jason with a lingering sense of connection that transcended conventional neural patterns. His vision darkened as the strain finally overcame his altered physiology. The last thing he heard was Dr. Reynolds shouting for emergency medical support as his legs gave way beneath him. The quantum resonance wave dissipated into the atmosphere, leaving disabled Malon technology scattered across the battlefield. Commander Vrax emerged from his powerless combat suit, watching the secure facility's doors seal shut with an expression that mixed frustration with unmistakable scientific curiosity.